Okay, and welcome back to another episode of Rocking Midlife, the podcast. And I have an amazing guest today. This lady's not only somebody that I've worked with, but she's somebody who's become a very close friend, and that is Dixie Maria Carlton. So welcome, Dixie.
Hi, how's it going?
It's great, and it's so good to have you there. So Dixie's a Kiwi, but living over in Australia, and I'm an Australian living in New Zealand, so it kind of balances out nicely. But before we get into it, I'm just going to read a little bit of an introduction about Dixie so that everybody listening or watching will know what we're on about today. So Dixie is the founder of a company called Indie Experts, which is the specialist independent publishing company for non-fiction authors who are game changers in their industries. The movers and the shakers who command, inspire and lead, industry experts and outspoken provocateurs. I could never say that. Say the word for me.
Provocateurs. And it's
thank you. Provocateur. Isn't that terrible? You know, that's my 30 odd years of playing saxophone, because I have a lisp and I do trip over myself when I start talking, and there's certain words I just can't because my mouth goes forward, tongue goes. Anyway, it's not about me. So what Indie Experts does, what they do for those up and coming giants of new thinking is they take them from relative obscurity and assist them carefully and strategically to take their place on platforms where they can achieve significant outcomes. So in other words, Dixie is the lady you need to go to when you have a non-fiction book that you're dying to get out that will help position you as an expert in your industry. She's the lady that'll help you get that book out. She'll help you get that book published, and then she will help you actually own that book and go on the journey with the book. So, and Dixie is the lady who published my two books, 21 Hacks to Rock Your Life, the original and the teen edition. And I can just say this lady is amazing. So Dixie, tell us a little bit about yourself. I can remove this.
Thank you. Well, I need to first just clarify that I'm part of a team, amazing team. My co-founder of Indie Experts, Tori Wilson, is a big powerhouse behind what we get to do here. And I am going to talk a little bit today about the fact that, you know, writing a book is a team effort. It's not something that you can do alone. And most people think that when you write a book, you just lock yourself away somewhere and overlook the palm trees or the, you know, lapping waves, and that's, you know, where you write from, and it's all a solitary exercise, but it's not. So you need to have a great team with you. So I co-founded Indie Experts last year with Anne, and we basically combined our two existing publishing services companies to do that. And we're going from strength to strength with that, working with non-fiction specialists. And we're working with a lot of women who are finding that in our mid-years, we've got a great story to tell, we've got inspiration and wisdom to share, and we want to make a difference in some way. So I get to have lots of really great conversations with really interesting people.
I was just going to say, you must have met some really interesting creative types, wouldn't you?
Oh, yes. Every day it's different, and every day there's really interesting things to learn about the world and people and who makes the world go round and how. And yeah, I love my work.
Oh, that's so cool. And what a nice position to be in where you love your work. So tell us a little bit about you though. Were you always involved in books? Was it a new area that you've gone into? How long have you been in this industry?
Well, I've got to confess here, I'm a high school dropout. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I did then go to university for a while, dropped out of that as well. But it wasn't until I was in my mid-30s that I realised that I really wanted to work in writing and publishing. And so I sold one of my companies. I had a couple of years of restraint of trade and thought, well, what am I going to do? Signed up for a very long, intensive 3-year coaching training program, and carried on doing marketing work. But then that just kind of evolved into doing publishing work, because I sat and wrote a book about the promotional products company that I'd had for a number of years. And so that was kind of the start of the journey. And then throughout that was back in the early 2000s, suddenly realised that there was all this really cool stuff to learn, and that there was also a huge gap in the market of people who wanted to publish books and be speakers and get their expertise and their wisdom out, but not necessarily either able to or wanting to work with the traditional publishers. And so the company that I had back in New Zealand was evolved almost by accident, working in that space. And then when I came to Australia, I kind of, walked away from it just for a little while and thought, and the whole thing keeps coming back to you. I think when you find what your purpose is and you're doing a great job of whatever it is that you're supposed to be doing, it will keep coming back to you.
Yeah.
So it's an old Scottish proverb, what's before you won't go past you. So as much as I every now and then thought, I think I'll just do marketing, or I'll just do business coaching or consulting, the publishing thing just kept coming back. And so over the last 10, 12 years, I've just gradually moved further and further back into publishing, and now have a really high level of expertise in things like publishing 3.0, Amazon, how the distribution systems work, working with authors who are really wanting to change their world a little bit at a time in some way, and so I get to work with them as not only speakers, but also in ways that they can cross over to other platforms like podcasting or audiobooks or blogging, marketing, doing all sorts of things to get their message out to the market. So it's kind of been an evolution. And along the way, although, yes, I dropped out of high school and then university, I've learned a lot about the publishing industry.
You've got the street smarts, though, now, haven't you, as far as publishing goes?
That's right. Yeah. Interestingly enough, I don't think you can actually go to university and get a publishing degree. So
wow.
I don't think.
Well, there you go. There's your next project, Dixie. Write that course, get into universities and start teaching it. That's cool. So do you believe that line that everybody has a story?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely everybody has a story in them. Everybody has a story, something to share, wisdom to share. And, we're doing a couple of books at the moment with people who are working in the midlife area, and like menopause or nutrition for middle aged people. It's hard to think of us as being middle-aged, they're over 45.
But we were just talking about this before, everybody. Dixie and I are literally like within a month of each other, and we're both hitting their very significant number this year. It's not got a 0 at the end, but it's right in the middle there.
So what we're finding is that for this age and stage of our lives, that we are starting to recognise this movement into what some tribal cultures recognise as being the golden age of woman. The wisdom. We become curious, wise wahinis who have significant more wisdom and experience to share and to help guide other people through. So we start to tap into what our stories are and why we need to share them. And so it's an exciting time for us as women who want to start really developing what is the best story to tell. So for example, I have stories I could tell about my experience with being widowed young, raising sons as a single parent, being a publishing person, being a marketing person, being a child of dysfunctional family. There's all sorts of stories I could tell, as all of us have that. But it's a matter of choosing, which ones actually matter the most, which ones are the ones that we need to be sharing because these are the ones that are going to make a difference to the ones that we want to make the difference to.
Yeah. So when an author comes to you with a vague idea, do you help them actually get that idea out of their head and help them shape their story? Or do you sort of say, no, you just come to me and with it already there and we'll make that work? Which is your preferred route?
So what I'm really good at is getting something from someone's head and sucking it right out and turning it into something that's able to be read and enjoyed by people.
Yeah.
So, and what I say is often the biggest, there's several big mistakes that authors make, but one of the biggest is the fact that they don't stop and think about who their market is, why they're into this, who's going to care what they have to say, what they want to have as their call to action at the end of their book, what do they want people to do when they finish reading their book, what action do they want to take, and also how do they narrow down those best bits. And often people think, I'm writing fiction, so it needs to be all fact-based. Well, my philosophy is that stories make the facts sticky. So you've got to pull good stories into what you're writing.
Yeah.
So I'm really good at helping people to figure that part out. And then what we do is we have a 10-step process. We develop the thinking, the planning. You can't just sit and write without a plan.
Yeah, that's true.
Your book,
unless you like looking at a blank piece of paper for a heck of a long time.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
A lot of people do that.
Yeah.
And when you've got a plan, it makes the writing a lot easier and a lot more straightforward and quicker as well. So once you've already mapped out your plan, then you can write. Then you've got to get, feedback from other people before you finish your manuscript. Then there's all of the finalising, the editing, getting good editing. So when I say this is a team process, as I did at the beginning, you've got to know that you've got a team of people who are going to support you through the process of starting, getting through to the middle parts, making sure that your editing is done really well. Because when you write a manuscript, you might write something that is kind of like a rough diamond. Then you've got to shape the diamond.
Yeah.
So that's the editing part. And then you've got to polish that diamond by making sure that you've got really good design formatting and all of the files that you need to have and all of the extra parts that need to be done. So if you actually go back to the very beginning of your planning, you think then about, well, what is the chapter going to look like? How are we going to put quotes in there? Are we going to finish each chapter with a checklist or a summary or a giveaway? So the thinking and the planning part is so critical to that. And
that's where I found working with your team was fabulous, because for me, I loved the writing side of it. The writing part was actually fairly easy to do, but the other part had kept me stuck for ages, like having to go find an editor. Where am I going to get that? And who's going to design it? And how do I know what looks good with the designing? And then, ISBN, whatever they are, those numbers and thank you. All of that stuff. See, I'm not even that much up to it, because I realized that's actually not my area of genius. And sure, I could spend time learning about that, and a lot of people do, but I actually didn't have the time to do that because I was trying to do other things over here. So being able to go to a team like your team in the experts that took my hand and said, right, now you need to do this, now you need to do that, and walked me through it, was so much better, so far easier for me to get my head around and just get that book out. So.
And from a publisher's point of view, and thank you for that, it's great to be able to work with someone who really knows that, this is a team project.
Yeah.
And to work with us on the basis of this is a project and let's make sure that we've got all of the things checking off along the way is really valuable for us and for our authors. Because if we're doing a great job, then we're making sure that everything gets checked off along the way. And if an author comes to us and says, I've got a great idea for a book, the first thing we want to do is sit down and say, well, let's actually look at the whole big picture, because it's not just about the book. It's about the before you write the book, during the book writing process, and then what happens after the book. So if you're going to write a book, that's all well and good, but then what are you going to do with it? How are you actually going to get it out to your market and get leverage on your expertise, on what you know and what you want people to understand about what you know?
Yeah, so that's so important. That's something I learned from you, but I was also aware of myself. And it's true. Your book is your business card. It does open doors for you, and it gives you something concrete that almost verifies your ability to be an expert, to go speak somewhere or to go teach somewhere. It's like, well, they've written a book, they must be good. It's the automatic reaction, isn't it? But it really does help you, look like you're carrying more authority in your field. Do you think it's important? So talking about midlife, okay, we're going to have so many ladies listening to this who are possibly reinventing themselves or starting new careers or launching out new enterprises. Do you see a book as a valuable part of their arsenal of what they do? Well, I guess you do, because you're in that situation. But why? Why would you say that these women, particularly business women, should have a book? Why would you feel that?
Often they do, because the process of developing a book and planning it means that you actually go very deep into your own level of expertise, and you start to really nut out what are the gems. So if you want to dominate or own a space in whatever it is that you do, going through the process of developing a manuscript actually helps you figure out exactly what your genius points are. So for example, one of the things that we do, so I'm the coach part of the equation within the experts as much as anything. So one of the things we start with is working out, well, who is it that you want to impact on the most? So let's go through a process of working out, well, who are they? What does that client or that reader look like? what is their biggest challenge, biggest frustration, desire, need, what's going well for them, what's not working for them. So you're in a position as you're developing a manuscript to figure out exactly what the crux of what it is that you're doing needs to be and how you want to impact on someone. So even if you are working in, let's say, for example, leadership, it's a common area that people write about and read about. If you're writing about leadership, that's fantastic. But let's just be honest for a minute. There are millions of books about leadership out there.
Yep.
And it's growing every year. It's probably the fastest growing genre for within nonfiction. But everybody has a specific style or a different something that they bring to that. So, for example, one leadership expert might be working with high-level executives who are facing critical issues with, big companies that are on the front line of life and death, or hospitals, for example. One leader might be working with small to medium-sized companies who are specifically working in the hospitality industry. Well, those two kinds of leadership books are streets apart. Yeah. So how do you get down to what really are your golden nuggets of wisdom that you're going to use to make a difference? So if you're thinking about writing a book, part of the process, which is why I believe people, when they write a book, need to go through this planning stage so well, is that you really start to get fabulously clear on what makes you a better expert than somebody else.
Yeah.
And so you develop your own expertise better through the process.
Yeah. It's your own unique voice, isn't it? Your own, like you said, you can have hundreds of people that write about leadership, but if you dig deep, you'll have your unique spin on it, which is that book then brings your voice out and it can cut through all those other ones and resonate with the right people. Now tell me, you've just written yet another new book, because Dixie is a prolific author herself. Tell us about your latest book, and have you got one there? You can wave at us so we can see what it looks like. There it is. So cool. It looks like a treasure map on the front.
It is a treasure map.
Yeah.
I wrote Authority Island earlier this year, and literally I wrote it in a week, which I don't normally recommend people try and do that in such a short time, but this just fell out of me because I spend a lot of time working with authors, and I wanted to be able to say, this is the different kinds of experiences that authors have when they are writing nonfiction, and it's like a journey, so you look at three authors in this story. So it's a parable, it's a story, it's about, three authors who go to an island and their different experiences with understanding things like Amazon and, speaking and media and publicity. And, one author who has just kind of written the book and then gone to the island and got ready to publish and thought, oops, there's a whole lot of stuff that I didn't count on, versus someone else who may have done a lot more homework before they started, and then someone else who has been walked through and guided through the process more. But there's also a matter of, how does it look when you've written a book? What is the after part?
Yeah.
So I wanted to be able to share that with authors. So I put this book together, and of course I'm very lucky to have a great team that, we developed it based on using all of our tools and resources. And it is actually a case study. So part of the whole process of this book is not only to make sure we get information into the hands of people that want to work on a book, but we're also going to probably do an updated edition mid to next year, where it will actually say, this is some of the stuff that also happens when you do this, this, and this after the book is launched. So it's a modern look at what's going on with distribution, getting books into the hands of people, how to, really get that leverage. So it's available on Amazon and all of the other places. And there's some amazing tools at the back of it for people who want to know how to get started on doing a book, like how to do a pitch, how to, there's all sorts of stuff. So
fantastic. And I can testify, I was one of the reviewers, and it's a fantastic book. Really great read. So Dixie, 3 points. What are 3 things you would say to somebody who comes up to you and says, I think I'd like to write a book? What are the first 3 steps you'd give them? Throwing you into it here.
Into it, yeah. Okay. First thing is, who's going to read your book? Why do they care? Why should you write it, and why now? So spend some time thinking about what you're doing, and know why you want them to read it, and then what you want people to do when they finish their book. 2, work on on a team philosophy. No, this is a team thing. You're not going to be able to do it on your own. If you think you're just going to write it and then, develop it and go to a publisher and they're going to pay you thousands to, publish your book, fantastic. That's not going to happen. So you need to work with a good team to develop a good, strong manuscript, a good, strong book. And then if you still have aspirations of working with a traditional publisher, you probably need to develop some really good street cred as an author first. So there's a whole lot of stuff that you need to learn.
Yeah.
So learn about the business of being an author.
I think that's nailed it. It's a business, isn't it?
It's a business, yeah. And then the third thing is work with a coach. You know, whether you're working with me or working with, someone else who's going to actually hold your feet to the fire, you can get this done in a reasonably short period of time if you're using a good system, and a good publishing coach will have a good system for how to get that material out of your head and onto paper or into a book format. Whether you work with someone online or an online program, or you're working one-on-one with someone like myself, doesn't really matter. But taking 2 years to write a book is ridiculous.
Yeah.
You should be able to get it done easily using a good coaching process within 3 to 6 months. And, you need to have someone giving you that outside perspective of what you're doing and how you're pulling it together as you're going through it. Because we end up getting a lot of people who come to us and say, I sat down, I wrote a book over the last 2 years and this is wonderful, but now I've got no idea what to do. And we end up unpacking a lot of what they've written.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
it's almost like they get too close to it themselves, don't they? And they don't really see the big picture, whereas you're able to help give them that perspective. Absolutely. And shape it right from the word go. So if people want to find you to work with you, they can go, what's your main website?
So our main website is www.indieexperts.com.au.
Fantastic. I am going to be putting this underneath, by the way. Sorry.
Thank you. And just as a special for everybody, if they want to go on to indieexperts.com.au/authority authors, and there'll be a link that I think you put up, then you can actually go in and get some good resources, a pitch download,
Fantastic.
a pitch test, but also look at even the new program that we've developed, which is specifically geared at thinking about what you're going to write before you even write it. So we're just launching that, and that's a useful process to go through.
Yeah.
At the starting point. Yeah.
Brilliant. That's so cool. So I'm going to be popping all Dixie's links, and you've got a course, haven't you? Was that one of the links you gave me?
Yeah, so that's one of the links I gave you. And if you're going through into the link that I've just said, you can actually get $50 off off that simple, short, just a few weeks long course to just get clear on what you're doing. And there's a lot of marketing and all that sort of thing in it. But yeah, short course, start with the thinking and the planning, and then from there you can write. And that just makes a difference with whatever you do whenever you get to a point of wanting to work with someone on your book.
Yeah, I love it. So basically start planning before you put pen to paper. And that makes such a difference. So thank you so much, Dixie. I really appreciate you coming on and talking to us. And people, that new book again is, what's the name of it again? Authority Island. Didn't want to say it wrong. Authority Island, but I'll have all of Dixie's links underneath. And also an extra thing for you, I just remembered, which is crazy, I should already know this. I actually have a free Facebook group called Read, Write and Publish, which Dixie's actually in, and that is literally just a little group for people who love reading, or people who want to write, or people who are writers. Brings them all together. So if you are someone looking for book suggestions or want to ask a publishing question or anything about writing, you can get in there, and that's totally free. And I'll pop that link under there too. So ladies, midlife, what better time to get some of that wisdom out on paper, whether you publish it or whether you write it for yourself and for your family. Now's the time. Now's the time. So thank you again, Dixie.
Thank you. It's been wonderful chatting with you again.
You too. Okay. See you later.